Hello guys, welcome to On by Innovation. Today we'll start with ASP.NET Core features. So what are the different features we can see in the ASP.NET Core? You can just go ahead and start looking into that. So ASP.NET Core 3.1 is a new version of ASP.NET by Microsoft. It's an open source web framework which can be run on Windows, Mac or Linux. So this is one of the major advantage what we have in ASP.NET Core. So that's the reason we can just go ahead and run the application on Windows, Mac or Linux. Uh, prerequisites for this, we need to have a basic knowledge of C#, HTML, Visual Studio, and object-oriented programming is required. So if you guys are not aware of these things, please go and visit my previous videos or just like go through some of the sites and understand what are the basic knowledge required for C# and HTML, Visual Studio, and OOPS concepts. And ASP.NET is one of the most successful web application development framework by Microsoft. With every update, and new and extended features are added that help developers deploy high scalable and performance web application. When coupled with application monitoring and the other performance tools such as Profilers, ASP.NET becomes a powerful solution for building incredible apps. So within the framework itself, there are many features to help you overcome the common development challenges. So do more with your apps and boost the performance of it. So let us go with the first point. .NET Core, it's a cross-platform and container supports. So with the introduction of .NET Core, you can now create ASP.NET applications and deploy them to the Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. That is already I gave you that information. So Microsoft and the community have put a huge effort into making it to Linux first-class citizen for running an ASP.NET application. So before the ASP.NET Core, it was not possible to deploy any of your application in Linux or Mac OS. It was only limited to Windows. So now Microsoft team has put a huge effort to making the ASP.NET application running in the Linux as well. So it's an open source. And the next point is containers are eating the clouds these days. Yes, Dockers, Kubernetes, and other technologies are all on the reach. So if you guys don't have what is a Docker, what is a Kubernetes, I would suggest you to just go ahead and have the basic knowledge on the Docker and the Kubernetes. So just to give you a high level overview of it. So Docker is a suite of software development tools for creating, sharing, and running individual containers. So Kubernetes is a system for operating containerized application at a scale. So think of containers or standardized packaging for microservices with all the needed application code and the dependencies, what are the dependencies we have inside of it. So if you guys have no idea about this, please go ahead and try to get some basic knowledge about that. So Docker and Kubernetes. So these are all where you can just go ahead and deploy your applications. So ASP.NET Core allows developers to utilize all of these new technologies. That is one of the major advantages what we have with ASP.NET Core. Microsoft Azure even has support for deploying your application to containers and Kubernetes. The next point is high performance. So some say that performance is critical feature of your software. I tend to agree with that because with the introduction of ASP.NET Core, the Kestrel web server and ASP.NET is touched as one of the fastest web application framework is available. So Tech Empower has some cool benchmarks, we can check it out. So this is one of the site we can just go ahead and check it out. What all the things, and there are a lot of the topics that has been explained very clearly. You can just always go ahead and check the site. And the technology that powered the ASP.NET integrated pipeline and IIS was roughly around 15 years old. So it did everything and carried out a lot of baggage with it. The new Crystal web server was redesigned from the ground up to the take advantage of asynchronous programming models, be much more lightweight and fast. So if you look at this, what is it what is it, something like millions of requests per second. So what we're getting it. So you can say that there's a .NET Core has a better request compared to other technologies. So that is one of the the developing technology what we can say. So yeah, that's a good sign if you started learning the .NET Core. And the next point is asynchronous via async or await. So if you're already from C# background, you would have done async and await, like asynchronous programming. So like all these things you could have done it. So ASP.NET has an excellent support for utilizing asynchronous programming practice. Async is now implemented in all common .NET framework classes and most third-party libraries. Most modern applications spend most of the time and CPU cycle waiting for database queries, web service calls, and other input-output operations to complete it. So one of the reasons ASP.NET Core is faster, it is extensive use of asynchronous patterns within the new MVC and Kestrel frameworks. The next point is unified MVC and Web API frameworks. Before ASP.NET Core, developers were most commonly using MVC and Web API framework. MVC was tailored to create a web application that served up HTML. Web API was designed to create a RESTful services using JSON or XML. So still, if you guys don't have any knowledge about the Web API, so I just like in my previous video, I just try to explain the basics of the Web API. So please go ahead and just have a look into that video as well, so that you'll have a better idea on what is a Web API. So as of now, just have to understand, you can just it was designed to create RESTful services using JSON or XML. So with ASP.NET Core, MVC and Web API have been merged together. There was always a lot of overlap with the two frameworks. MVC could always return JSON data instead of HTML. Combining them was a good move and simplifies the development. With ASP.NET Core, we also have the new Razor pages. So they extend the MVC framework to allow the encapsulating the controllers and model aspects of a page together with a two-way binding. They are sort of a replacement for web forms while using the familiar Razor syntax. So here, the next point is multiple environments and development mode. So one of my favorite features is the new environment feature. It allows you to easily to differentiate parts of your code for their behavior in development, staging, production, etc. So there was no standard way to do this before ASP.NET Core. For example, it is used within a startup.cs file, help configure your application. In this case, whether or not we want to show the more details exception for the development only. So there's something like what you can see, we can just highlight over here. So this is something like this is the way it has been used. Multiple environments and development mode. This is the way it has been configured for. So that is there was no standard way to do this before, before the ASP.NET Core. So now we don't have that. So the dependency injection. So one of the the greatest features I can say of the ASP.NET Core is built-in dependency injection. It is heavily used in within the ASP.NET MVC itself. It is preferred way the things like logging context and database context and other things are passed into your MVC controllers. So before, how we used to do it, dependency injection, we used to do it by using the third-party tool. So maybe by using the Autofac or the containers, in Unity. So by always we are trying to just use a third-party controller to achieve the dependency injection. But now the good news is in .NET Core we don't have that. So as I said, it's within the ASP.NET MVC itself. So it is preferred the way the things logging the context, database context, and what are the operations what are the class you create. It is you just have to go ahead and just make sure that you register in the startup.cs, where you have the configuration method. So that is something you just have to go ahead and provide the interface along with the class name. So this will help you to just have the object created, object is ready for you. All you have to do in this case, example, if you look at this, a payment service, they are inheriting the payment services. So there they want to have a dependency on the iLogger factory. So this iLogger factory must be registered in the startup.cs, the class which they're pointing to. So here they can just go ahead and register in the constructor, so that object will be created for you. So there is one of the major advantage in ASP.NET Core. So the next point is WebSockets and Signal. So ASP.NET has first-class support for WebSockets. This can be used to persist long-running connections and communicate back and forth with a browser. SignalR is a full framework that is also available that makes it easy handle common scenarios. So we use SignalR very heavily at the Stackify. For example, when we viewing the current monitoring data about one of your servers, every time we receive new data, so immediately they push it to the web browser, so you can see it updated in real time. So these types of scenarios are perfect. WebSockets and Signal makes it so easy. So Stackify is one of the sites. So this is the site we can just always go ahead and refer that. So this is a source for this explanation. Uh, Please just go and visit. It may help you, even understanding these things in a better way. So a cross-site request forgery protection. It is also called as CSRF. So security is very, very important, right? So it is also one of those things that can be a lot of work to prevent certain types of attacks. So CSRF is referencing to hijacking users' authenticator session to perform an action that they didn't initiate at all. For an example, let us pretend that you log into your bank account and then navigate to your different site. If that other website could do a post to your bank website to transfer funds, that would be no bad thing, right? So that is something like we just like to have to go ahead and avoid it. So it could potentially do that if your online session on the banking website is valid and the bank does not properly validate the request. So ASP.NET has a good framework that is available to prevent this type of attacks. It generates anti-forgery tokens. So the next point is the self-hosted web application. So sometimes you need to make a web application that will be deployed on a desktop, not on a server running on IIS. Our free ASP.NET Profiler prefix is a perfect example of this. Its front end is all HTML that is loaded from ASP.NET application running as a Windows service. You can create a self-hosted ASP.NET application several ways. So in .NET 4.5, you could accomplish by using your OWIN, Nancy, or WCF for prefix. So we use ASP.NET Web API with OWIN. So with ASP.NET Core, you can also use standard Kestrel web server. So one of the greatest advantage of .NET Core is that your web application is essentially a console application. So IIS just sits in front of it as a reverse proxy. This means that you can also deploy your app only with a Kestrel for non-server based use cases like prefix. So let's go to the action filters. So if you're from ASP.NET MVC background, you might have already heard about the filters which I have for the MVCs. So here also I'm talking about the same. So one of the greatest features of ASP.NET is support for extensible filters. So this will allow to implement the functionality that can be applied to an entire controller or action without modifying the action itself. Filters are used to specify the caching, error handling, authorization, or any custom logic you would like to implement. So here you can see that output cache, that is one of the filter which you're doing, just trying to use it here. So the duration of the cache is something like the 10 minutes we're trying to set it. The extensible output caching. So this features allows ASP.NET to cache the output generated by the page and the server this cached content for future request. It stores the data that is not updated frequently and output that specific data from cache location. So ASP.NET makes it easy to specify how long any request should be cached via common HTTP headers. It also supports for caching output within the memory on your web server itself. You can even use Redis or other providers to handle your output cache. So the globalization and localization. So ASP.NET makes it easy, localize dates, numbers, and text within your application. If you want application to be used across the globe, localization will be very, very important here. I hope what I'm talking about here. So the localization is nothing but making the application multilingual. So that sometimes you want your application to be available in multiple languages. So that is something like what we can achieve over here. So ASP.NET enables customizing your application for multi-languages via resource files. These resource files are considered as the central repository whereas all texts are kept. And web pages can read the resource files and get the labels populated. So there are two types of resources, local resources and global resources. So local resources specific to for a page, that is something like there'll be local resource file for every page. Global resources are common for the whole website. One resource file accessed by the all pages. So that is something that is a that is a difference between the local and the global. This is something if you guys are not aware of it, please go ahead and understand how we can make an application multilingual. So the one more thing is okay, you can just go ahead and just like Swagger Open API. So if you are creating API application, you want to make sure that you're using Swagger. So I hope you guys are aware of the Swagger. So Swagger, which is just something like which will help you to just test your API calls. So there are many ways, like you can just go ahead and test your API in a different ways. So we do have something called as Postman. So you can just go ahead and always use it. But Swagger is something like if you run it, it'll just give you a better understanding of the API which is already available. So ASP.NET historically provided built-in functionality that is pretty similar for SOAP web services created with WCF. If you're using Web API or MVC RESTful Service APIs, you definitely want to use Swagger. So ASP.NET Core has been nice upgrade over a previous version. This article will highlight it, some of the key features I should be aware of, some of the news, some of the just key features of the ASP.NET that has been existed for a while. So that is something like those are all the basic features for .NET Core. So hope this has been given you the basic understanding of for .NET Core. I have not tried to explain anything programmatically. So we are we are planning to just start the tutorials or start the classes step by step. So there's something like there's a first video for the ASP.NET Core. This is something like to just give you the overview or basic understanding of for .NET Core. So next we will go to the future planning. So what's on next plan? So please be in touch with us so that you guys will be aware of all these topics. So if you're new to the ASP.NET Core, then start with this following following basics. So we will start I hope you guys some got some overview of the .NET Core overview. Again, we will start with that again. So I will just start with the .NET Core overview, ASP.NET Core overview, how to install ASP.NET Core, the create ASP.NET Core web application, and later we can go to ASP.NET Core projects and their folder structure, and we'll see what is www root folder, and set up host in program.cs file, importance of startup.cs file, working with command line interfaces, and configuring the default file to be served on the root request, ASP.NET Core environment variables. So immediately right after that, we will jump into ASP.NET Core middleware. So middleware in ASP.NET Core assembled into an application pipeline to handle requests and responses. So this is very, very important topic. So we are going to see all this topics one by one. I'm going to make videos on these individual topics on a regular basis. So if you guys are not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe it so that you'll be notified once I start uploading the videos. So the next point is dependency injections in ASP.NET Core. So I already explained you what is the basics of the dependency injection. And also I have already uploaded how we can achieve the dependency injection in my previous video. You can just go through that. But again, I will just I'm happy to resolve your queries if you have any questions on dependency injection. So built-in IOC container in ASP.NET Core, working with middleware in ASP.NET Core, how to add custom middlewares in ASP.NET Core application. So serving static files in ASP.NET Core, serving static files from any folder in ASP.NET Core, advanced topics. So we learn exception handling, logging, and the other advanced topics. So exception handling in .NET Core, logging in .NET Core, .NET Core application types, and logging in ASP.NET Core, code sharing between .NET projects, target multiple frameworks in ASP.NET Core projects. So this is the plan, guys. So this is what we're going to learn. So I just referred to one of the good site and just try to have all the topics ready so that I can just go ahead and explain. Please go ahead and do the reference of the internet and try to understand what is the basic concept. So here the main intention is I want you guys to at least get some knowledge from us. So if you guys have any questions or queries with what are the videos which you have uploaded, you can always put your comments over in the chat, or if you guys want to get in touch with us, you can always call us to this number. And if someone is looking for a training and kind of a corporate level training, or they want to go ahead with the technologies, latest technologies, so they can always get in touch with us. And we do provide training for ASP.NET Core, Angular, and Azure. So and SQL Server. So I mean, you guys always can get in touch with us. So we will help our best to make sure that you are in the right track in your career. That's all from my side. Hope this video will help you to start with your ASP.NET Core learn. Thank you so much.